All right. Hey, good afternoon and welcome everyone to Friday the 13th, 2020. That's not an ominous sign at all of that, but maybe we can get some good, scary cybersecurity stories here today. I think some of the panel that we've got on here can definitely share some of those with it. As we've got everyone piling into the webinar right now here, I wanted to welcome you, and we've got a great webinar lined up, and I know it was listed that I think we just had Danny as the host of today's webinar here about why antivirus sucks and how to create a security stack that actually works. But we actually recruited a few of our top Producers Club members here to be on the call as well, because they've got some great stories to share here with all of you, and we're going to have a great discussion here today versus just letting Danny drone on with his pitch. I'm just messing with you, Danny, there.
I'm sure everybody's heard enough of me.
But ThreatLocker is a great partner of Technology Marketing Toolkit and MSP Success magazine here. And so we're real happy to have you on today's call. They were one of our featured speakers on our roadshow that we just wrapped up. And with that, Danny, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to let you take over here.
Well, thank you very much for having us today, Jeff. And Neil and Brandis, I appreciate you joining us as well. So hopefully make people not sleep well on Friday the 13th. So I'm just going to share my screen here, if I can figure out where my share button is. There it is. I've got this microphone right in front of where I need to share. So hopefully that came up okay, did it?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so maybe just to introduce myself, and then I'll pass it over to Brandis and Neil to introduce themselves. I'm the CEO of ThreatLocker. I've worked in the cybersecurity industry for a long, long time before it was called cybersecurity. And I've worked from the corporate side of cybersecurity, but also in the MSP side. So I've got quite a big balance on anything from securing banks, dealing with hacks in hospitals and insurance companies, and then even doing penetration testing, showing people how you can get into networks and white hat stuff. We're joined today by Brandis Kelly from the Technology Specialist. Brandis, thank you for joining us. Yep. Maybe if you can just quickly introduce yourself and let everyone know a little bit about your business.
Sure. My name is Brandis Kelly, Technology Specialist. We are in Wichita, Kansas, and our primary market or vertical is dental, and we deal mostly in the small to medium-sized business space.
And Brandis is a true advocate of zero trust and a very good partner of ThreatLocker. So we appreciate you being a partner, Brandis. And we're also joined by Neil Jern, who again, a ThreatLocker partner, which we appreciate, and a ThreatLocker Gold partner. And Neil's the CEO of Jern Technology. Neil, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Danny. I even wore my ThreatLocker shirt today. So we're in San Antonio, Texas, and my background is enterprise IT. So I worked at a nationwide company, with thousands of endpoints, and did that for a lot of years before kind of taking the leap to start an MSP. And one of the things I learned real quickly is I know nothing about marketing, and so had to go to Robin to really get educated on that. And anyway, so I guess I'll fill in as we go, but ThreatLocker's been a great new solution for us.
So we're going to try and keep this kind of conversational. If anyone has any questions they want to post on the Q&A, feel free to do so. And we're just going to kind of go through, talk about what we think about certain things on security and different topics. Probably before we begin, though, I want to say this, and I can't stress this enough because I've seen it too many times. I just actually got off a webinar with another partner before this one, and he shared some interesting stats as well. 25% of companies that get a cyber breach go out of business within a year, and 50% within 5 years. Having a cyber breach is the most likely way you're going to go out of business. Even with all this COVID stuff, even this is the most likely way that your business is going to die and you will not be able to recover from it. So taking cybersecurity seriously is really important. I kind of, and you might have some input, Brandis and Neil, on this. I want to talk about this concept of scattered or blanket type attacks. And I would consider this what most MSPs had to deal with up until the last 5 years or 6 years or whenever ransomware kind of happened. And it was the concept of malware and open relay. So I don't know if you remember back in 2001, the love bug, it kind of spread around the world and told you I loved you, and it infected, I think, a third of the world's computers or something at the time. But that's kind of a blanket level attack. It's something where everyone's saying, I'm going to throw this out there and hit as many people as I can, and I don't care who it is. And it didn't really do much damage either. It just told you it loved you and told your friends you loved them, and maybe your ex-girlfriend or something like that. But it was kind of one of those attacks. But I kind of feel like, if you're in the MSP industry 10 years ago, this is your focus. How do I stop open relays? How do I stop these minions walking around trying to randomly connect to my servers and send malware and things like that? I don't know if you've got anything to add on that, Brandis.
Well, I mean, I certainly don't think that's as much of, I feel like, even looking back 10 years ago, it used to be that it was just the big companies you heard about and those big, huge breaches. And now the focus has really seemingly honed in on your small and medium-sized businesses, and recognizing that even those guys have to have their data and they have to pay ransoms too. And I mean, as I mentioned, we're in the dental market. And so that's very difficult for us, because now you're talking about HIPAA compliance and having to report any leak of, PHI or anything along those lines. So, that's their livelihood, and you're ruining reputations. And I am actually a little surprised that percentage was only like 25% in the first year. I would not be surprised if that percentage is actually higher than that, because it's almost impossible to withstand a breach because of the fact that you're ruining your reputation.
And I think that's it. It's and the problem is, and we're going to get a bit more into this as well, is sometimes you don't know the damage until years to come. And Neil, you've worked in the enterprise space, so you kind of learn to prepare against what I would call targeted attacks as well. And 10, 15 years ago, if you were Bank of America, you had to defend yourself from those blanket level attacks. You had to defend yourself from that self-propagating malware. But you had something else which was far trickier. And quite often you hear the line, who cares about my business? No one wants to hack me. But as Bank of America, obviously, you didn't ever say that. As Department of Defense, you didn't say that. So securing enterprise required a completely different approach to securing small businesses, because you also had to deal with these targeted attacks. What was your experience in the enterprise world from that, Neil?
Yeah, we had to, you have to turn over every rock, right? You can't take any chances. So you have to have, the higher end tools like the SIEMs, you've got to log everything. It's pretty intense. And you had to assume, like Danny just said, that you are a target. Whereas a lot of small businesses try to play the whole game of security through obscurity. They want to kind of pretend like they're not a target and just hide, but it's not true. And you see it every day, especially in our world, right? So the bigger entities, you already know you're a target. So you have to look under every rock and log everything and be aware, be really on top of everything. And so that's kind of been our approach a little bit, is take some of that knowledge and try to apply it to the small to mid-sized businesses. So yeah, it's a mindset, really, is what it boils down to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think and that's what we've seen now. We've seen going back 10 years, if you were enterprise, you had to deal with security one way. If you're everyone else, you just had to deal with it another way. And now what we found is that these bad guys, these cyber criminals, are saying, wow, I can actually get 100 grand from a small dental office in Kansas. I don't need not under Brandis's watch. I don't need I don't need to go after Bank of America, because I can steal 100 grand from the local dental office, or from the car dealership, or local government, or healthcare office. And they're actually saying, for 100 grand, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on these guys. I'm going to find out who they do business with, where their backups are stored. And I feel like these attacks in the past, it used to be if you open the malware, and even when we started seeing the first levels of ransomware, when you open the ransomware, it encrypts the files it's got access to, and then it quits. And that was and they were asking for $500 to decrypt it, going back to 2012, 2013, and 14. And then they realized, okay, well, people are just restoring from their backups. I need to start targeting these people. And they'd go into investigations and they'd pick the most obscure businesses. And so security obscurity doesn't work. I mean, the webinar the discussion had this morning with another partner was they had a landscaping company, and they were able to get data. They're going after, like, anyone who's a landscaping company say, why would anyone want to go after my data? Well, because they can still get your bank accounts, they can still get your files, they can still get your customer list, your invoice list, and there's a value you're willing to pay for that, and it's quite often higher than people think. Maybe I know you might have some. I don't know if you have any experience, Neil, or Brandis. Feel free to, on specific customers where you've seen this, where you've seen not big enterprises targeted in this way.
What led us to ThreatLocker actually is early 2019. We had a client who, and actually I know Kyle from Hunters has done a demo similar to this, but we had this client who accepted resumes by email, right? So they just had an email address on their website, and you could just send your resume in, and the lady in HR who got what she thought was a Word doc, but it's really a macro, a .m file, and she opens it, ignores all the warnings, and runs the macro, and next thing you know, it's encrypting files on her system and going lateral, and it was a wake-up call for us. We were like, okay, users, obviously they need awareness training, but beyond that, how do you, we took the virus sample of that. It was I forget the name of it right now. We took that sample and we ran it through virustotal.com, right? And about 56 virus engines and 0 detections. So we're talking about a virus that, antivirus would do nothing with. It just go right through. And so it took us like 2-3 days to clean that up, to bring it all back. And it was a wake up call for us. We were like, okay, we can't be playing around with that anymore. I like to use the phrase, ain't nobody got time for that. We'd rather be growing our company than trying to help some company, some customer, recover from something like that. So
I actually have an exact sample like this here. Somebody sent this to me. One of their clients contacted them, got really mad that they were blocking Office. Mm-hmm. So they sent this resume and say, why can't I open this resume? Why are you blocking this resume? And I still have this on my demo environment here. So I'm just going to open it and I'm going to show you a very similar scenario. So you see here, ThreatLocker's just blocked that in the background, and I'm going to send a request for it. And the reason I'm going to do that is, too many browsers open here. That's the problem. Apparently I didn't even activate Office to run that malware. If you go into the approval center here, everything's logged out, and there's a check virus total link. And again, it just doesn't know what it is. And the reason is it's because it's constantly changing itself. So it's hard for them. And I've had this on my machine for 6 months, at least, maybe longer. It's constantly changing the dynamics of the file. And if you look at the batch file, it breaks it down. It's just a lot of random crap in there. And then there's the ultimate gotcha. And quite often it's not about, I'm going to encrypt your files. It's, I'm going to get somewhere else in your network, and then tomorrow I'm going to encrypt your files, or I'm going to get onto a few more machines before I do that. I'm going to swap out documents on your file servers with executables that look like documents and serve the original document, but allows me to infect 5-6 more machines before I do it. And hopefully along the way, they get access to the backups and other things. But if very least, they encrypt your files.
And you're so unsuspecting, your HR person, they're not necessarily trained for that. You can train your employees all day long, but if they're just looking at a resume thinking it's a Word document, they're so unsuspecting, and that's so clever. it sucks that there has to be so many ways to continue to combat all the horrible things happening, which is exactly why the zero trust approach is a great answer, because it's effective, because it actually is legit zero trust.
And I think the case of that email shows that exactly. It's that the user complained they couldn't open the resume. So it didn't even cross their mind, oh crap, I shouldn't have opened that resume. They went in, and the email chain was pretty mean to the MSP. It was, why are you blocking me from opening this resume? I can't do my job. And it's like, that's ransomware. And if we turn off ThreatLocker, it does encrypt the files. Have you found many cases of this? I mean, obviously we see it outside of the user through the RMM, through RDP, through vulnerabilities. Have you seen many cases of the user triggering attacks, Brandis, as well?
Well, I mean, really ours are from emails mostly for anything. I mean, we did have one client one time try to put an infected flash drive in their computer that, I mean, again, they're so unsuspecting. They go to a conference and these people are handing out 16 gig flash drives, and oh, hey, that's a great little value. I'd love to put my pictures on it or whatever. So they plug it into their work computer like an idiot. And it had something on it, and you can't even tell. It doesn't look like it has anything on it, but you know, it's crap like that happens. And you don't even think twice about it. So many people don't think twice about that.
And talking about the flash drives, I mean, the rubber duckies, if you don't know what one of those are, they essentially look like flash drives, or this one here, this looks exactly like a charging cable. You cannot tell the difference, like an iPhone charging cable. And when you plug them into your computer, they essentially send a series of keystrokes. So we have a demo that shows you how we can upload data, and nothing's going to detect it because it's literally just going to use keystrokes, weaponize PowerShell against you. This one here is called an OMG cable, and it has the extra benefit that you don't actually have to send the keystrokes when you plug it in. You can send it remotely from a web browser. It sets up a mini hotspot. I can connect to it, and then I can just type in, you know, invoke web request, download this malware, invoke web request, upload a file later on. And I remember a hospital that had a case like this, that someone had gone into the hospital. And every time I go into the hospital now with my kids, every time I'm in there, I'm looking at the computers and I see exactly how they can still get in. And the doctor walks out the room. He doesn't lock the computer. The x-rays are up on the machine. Even if he did lock it, just plug one of these in, and then you walk out the room, and then you've got keyboard access to deliver payloads into a hospital. And it amazes me that even today, I saw an entire hospital get started off with a rubber ducky and then get crypto locked out elsewhere. But there's, like you said, email, Zoom, Teams, vulnerabilities. There's so many different ways.
Right.
Yep. I was just going to add to that. We have a healthcare client. It's pretty large that before we won the contract, one of their vendors, and you see this a lot more than you used to, but SaaS, vendors that are getting hit, right? So one of their software as a service providers got hit with ransomware, and they were kind of like, whoa, this is a little close for comfort. This is getting close to our network, our data. So we were in the negotiating process at the time. And so they threw out the question to all the people competing for the contract: how are you going to prevent us from getting ransomware? And so our answer was our security stack, and specifically we had them look at a demo of ThreatLocker, and we won that deal hands down. And we're talking a very large contract. So if you're even thinking about that, especially like Danny's been talking about the healthcare space, hospitals right now are getting hit at a record rate right now. So if you have anybody in healthcare, you need to show them this. This is the game changer right here,
And one of the other things, I mean, people often think of ransomware, and this is where we're seeing more change in this, is ransomware was, I'm going to encrypt your files, and then you have to pay to get them back. And that's definitely part of ransomware. But one of the things we're seeing over and over again, and this is, I think, where you go, the 50% go out of business within 5 years, the attackers are capitalizing on their investment. So maybe you pay the ransom, you get your files back. Maybe you restore from a backup. Maybe you've got an offline backup, you restore, you get your files back. You can't sit back and say no harm, no foul.
Right.
Essentially, because they're coming in at the same time they're encrypting your files, they're taking your files, they're copying your files, they're uploading them to the internet. And they could be customer orders, credit card numbers. And then they capitalize on that. And they capitalize on it in two ways. One is they can just use that data. They can take money from your bank account. They've got passwords if you've got them saved wrong. They've got little pieces of data that they can just keep taking from you. And you might not even know they're related. It's just, oh, someone robbed my bank account. Someone stole my identity. Someone stole one of my employees' identity through and filed a fake tax return. And all these little things that happen. It's like everyone you know seems to have bad luck. But then they'll also use it to re-attack you. Because if I know who you do business with, if I'm an attacker and I want to figure out how to get in there, I've got all this leverage. If I know Neil emails Brandis an invoice every single month, then it's easier for me to email Brandis from Neil and say, oh, can you pay this invoice to a different account? Because she's more likely to trust that than if I was to send it from get something wrong. So even the signatures down to the emails, they collect that and then they either use it themselves or sell it on the dark web for someone else to attack you.
We've actually seen that exact approach taken with a couple of our clients that are in construction. Construction, there's a lot of wire transfers, a lot of, you're paying subcontractors and I mean, think about the level of sophistication. I mean, they're going out, they would actually register a domain name that's almost the same, like one letter difference than your customer, get an exact copy of the email signature, then they would create an email address that's the same as your customer, use their email signature, send the request to that vendor or subcontractor and say, wire the money here kind of deal. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's a level of sophistication that you just don't see very often. You didn't used to see, but you do now. Yeah.
Actually, on that, and anyone who's on this webinar, I try and say this on every event I do. Anyone who's on this webinar, if you have the letter I in your email address, of course, Office isn't activated on here. Let me do it in Google G Suite or something. If you have the letter I in your email address, go and register it with the letter L. No, sorry, the other way around. The letter L, go and register it with the letter I. Because in Outlook, it is impossible to see the difference. I don't know why I put EXE. The difference between L and I. So that is actually the letter L, I. If I copy it into Notepad, we can see here it's I. So obviously I already registered it. I've seen people get that sophisticated. They will go and register a domain that looks exactly like yours by swapping out that letter. Of course, they can swap out any combination of letters and it confuse people. And again, not knowing who partnerships are is always good. But that, it's impossible. I mean, you couldn't argue with someone, call a user stupid because they engaged in an email chain looking at that. So if you do have the letter L, go and register that domain, or I, L, register as a capital I as well, and set up DMARC on it and set up SPF on it so no one can spoof your address.
We've seen it happen with the letter M as well. They'll do an R and an N next to each other.
Yeah, that's seen that as well.
There's a lot of that going on.
Busy. I mean, everybody does. If you're not, insanely diligent, which, I mean, to be honest, I know Danny, you and I have had conversations before about you sending out your own tests to your own staff. I mean, we all do it, and we get so busy and you're not looking for that little R and the N right next to each other. I mean, that's insane. And the L and the I, the first time you told me that, I'm like thinking through every single thing I could possibly think of for domains, and we're good, but still it's like, gosh, I would change my domain. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's it. And like, we have our own staff and all of our staff go through cybersecurity training regularly. And they still click on phishing links that we're testing phishing links we send them. And recently there was a fake phishing email that went out saying, Michael, our CTO, had sent them a gift. If it come from, they said Danny had sent you a gift, they knew it wasn't real, but they said Michael sent you a gift, and I think 3 or 4 of our staff clicked on the link. It's like, really? Really? Do you think why would he send you a gift? So they're working for the wrong company.
Yep.
So here's the other thing about this as well, is these rewards for the attackers. I want to make sure this is really clear. It's not small, and small dental offices will pay $100,000 to get their data back, and the attackers know this, so they're happy to go after them, and they're big wins and easy wins as well.
Right.
You said something, Danny. We always do research on who's gotten hacked, and you usually only hear about the bigger companies out there, but LG got hacked with ransomware, and they exfiltrated source code, right? So you got to think about that for a minute. You know, it's one thing to pay the ransom to decrypt your files, or maybe they restored their files, but how much did they lose because source code was stolen, right? That could be way more, way beyond any ransom amount. I mean, way beyond. So it's crazy. It's a little bit, you know, you got to think about the value of that data is probably a lot higher than you really realize, you know.
It is, and then there's other things that might seem invaluable, but all of these are little things that add up that lead to future breaches. If you know when someone's booking a flight and where their flight is, and you send them an email saying changes made to your flight, American Airlines Dublin to Orlando, and they know they're on that flight, they're less likely to pay attention when they click on that link and log in. Tiny pieces of information can really help attackers. So when they get in and they take your entire PST and your email and a copy of your QuickBooks database with all the invoice amounts and your staff social security numbers, they really have the upper hand when it comes to attacking you in the future. Here's one thing that's kind of terrifying as well. I mean, I remember back in 95, 96, 97, when I got my first computer, I think 95, and it was running Windows 95, and I didn't have internet access because in the UK it wasn't that popular then. I used Encarta on the DVD or CD to get my information from the computer, and I went down to PC World and I bought a copy of Norton Antivirus. And I felt really cool because I bought these floppy disks home and I put it in and I installed Norton Antivirus. And how was I going to get a piece of malware? I wasn't through the power line. But we just look at over the last decade, 2 decades, how antivirus has constantly evolved, and it always seems to be, and I say antivirus, I'm kind of bundling this whole concept of we're going to look for the bad guys, because that's the idea of antivirus. It's a background check, it's a personality test of your software, and it's going to say we're going to look for the bad guys. But if we look back over the last 2 decades and we just see next gen, and AI, threat hunting, math, EDR, and not that these aren't important parts of security, because there's no argument there. They all suck as far as I'm concerned. But and everyone gets really disappointed when they let them down. But you have to understand as well, what you're doing here is you're putting something in your stack. You're putting security in that it's going to get the common stuff. It's going to get the most popular stuff, but it's ultimately trying to determine who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. And that is a very, very difficult task to do. So
yeah, with zero trust, you flip it upside down, right? I mean,
they're all bad. Everybody's bad. Presumed bad. Guilty until proven innocent.
That's it. There's no right to a jury trial here. And that's really where we get into the zero trust. Let's imagine, even if we did have this perfect antivirus that detected every piece of malware in the world, these tools, RegServe, RunDLL, PowerShell, things that are on your whitelist can be used against you. TeamViewer, I mean, I saw an MSP, signed up an MSP recently, customer called them. I say recently, it was last year at this point. Customer called them saying, why are you looking at my password? The MSP has no idea what this woman's talking about. She's yelling down the phone, why are you looking at my passwords? What happened is somebody had spoofed the MSP's email address or sent from a similar address saying, there's a problem with Screen Connect. Can you click on this TeamViewer link or go to assist link or whatever it was so I can fix something on your machine? The user clicked on it thinking it was the MSP, and suddenly they're attached to her computer and they're looking at saved passwords in Google Chrome. Now, like right in front of her face. And the customer didn't even think, oh, I shouldn't have clicked on that link. She genuinely thought, this is the MSP and he's looking at my password. She was ready to call the police on him to say what he was doing, but it never even crossed her mind that it was someone in the Middle East or Pakistan or,
Right.
or something like that. It was just crazy. So all of these antivirus, even if they could detect everything, there's all of these good tools that often do get used against us. So what we want to do is really figure out how you stop chasing the threat and start thinking more like an enterprise. And the reason I talked about enterprise at the beginning was because they've had to deal with these attacks all the time. They've had to deal with custom software, and they've had to build efficient security and not just add more layers of detection, or hoping that this one would detect it. And I wanted to pull up the slide and kind of have a conversation around this, around different types of security. And we all know there's the human layer of security. So I always think there's three angles to whatever we're protecting, whether it's the endpoint or an application, or there's three angles to protecting against it. And if we go back to that email example, if the user gets an email and doesn't open it, we're good. We can all smile, but we know that doesn't happen. So this is a really important part of security, but it's never going to be a complete part of security. But if we can reduce I always try and find a nice word for stupid. I don't know if there is one. Our less educated users, if we can reduce that from 30 to 10%, that's a bonus. We've got a thingy. The other part of security is what I just say detection. And that could be an antivirus, which ultimately, when you open that email, if the antivirus says, whoa, this is bad, I'm going to block this, you're good. Your EDR could say, it's okay, I don't see it being bad, but I'm going to detect after the fact if it's doing something suspicious. I'm going to detect, shut it down, and can say it's good. And then you've got threat hunting, which might find those footholds in your system. But ultimately, all of these things are things looking for bad behavior. And you really don't know if they're going to hit, because think about this. Think about how software and malware works. Take Dropbox as an example. Do any of you guys use Dropbox?
Mm-mm.
So Dropbox synchronizes your files to the web, and so does OneDrive, and so does Google Cloud. It takes your data and synchronizes it to the web. Is that bad behavior? Some might argue Dropbox is.
Well, yeah.
If you use it in your environment, it's fine, because I have an intention to do that. But if you take a piece of malware, you can digitally sign it. It can do the exact same thing. It can almost use the exact same code. How can an EDR tell that's not bad and that's bad and Dropbox isn't? They can't. They're doing their best to figure out what's good and bad. Just like if you were to go out into the street and you were to look at a bunch of people and say, I trust him, I don't trust her, I trust her, I don't trust him. And, everyone's got face masks on, they're all going to rob my house. It's very hard for you to gauge that. And obviously detection, I'm sure you guys use multiple layers of detection in your own security, do you?
Yep.
Yeah, but it's important. But where the enterprise differs is where they put in controls. And that's really where ThreatLocker helps you, because enterprise would say, okay, the human opened the email because they're stupid. It doesn't matter if the antivirus detects that piece of malware. It's not on our allow list. We deny by default. We block everything out of the box. And that's the way we approach it. And that's the way the federal government is mandated to approach it. It's written into legislation. If you are part of the federal government, you have to implement that. Now, they don't all necessarily do it right, but that's another conversation. You have to implement that technology. Ring fencing applications, they don't just determine who's allowed access to what, although that's probably a big issue in small businesses too, where you have too many permissions being granted to too many users. But they also define what applications can access what. So you can't just open an application and have free reign on your network. And in the MSP world, apparently I lost the slide here. Oh, it's gone. You got most people and are used to this at the network layer. I mean, I assume you've got firewalls on all your sites, do you, Brandis?
Absolutely.
And if you think back to 1980s, 1990s, when we said, oh, we got to secure our networks because people are getting on them. The guys, the businesses, security professionals didn't say, I've got an idea, let's create an intrusion detection system that detects the bad guys. They didn't do that. They added a firewall onto their perimeter. They said the only ports that are allowed to be opened are the ones we need. Later on, they added detection so as an extra layer, but that ultimately, fundamentally, at a network layer, we use firewalls. Unfortunately, there you go, my slides all in the wrong order. Unfortunately, at the endpoint level, this is what too many endpoint looks like. And maybe I've overstacked the left here with all the different options, but they might have their EDR, their threat hunting, their antivirus, but they're all detecting. So they're trying to detect good versus bad. So when the user opens that email, it doesn't get detected. You're done. You have no control over your antivirus. You can't determine if it's going to detect it.
Yeah.
See, I got all my slides in the wrong order. Well, obviously, now this is where Neil and Brandis are both partners at ThreatLocker, and I invited him to the call today, and I appreciate you guys coming because you did something that most of our partners don't even do, and that is jumped in headfirst at extreme levels with this concept of default deny. So whereas most partners go through this learning process, wait for a few weeks, let it learn what their environment looks like, and then lock it down. Neil, maybe it's better you explain your onboarding process because you did it slightly differently.
Yeah, so we, one of the things we do when we talk to our clients is we let them know, like what Danny said at the very beginning, which is your biggest threat to going out of business is essentially a cyber attack. Not only is it for us as MSPs, it's even worse, right? It's definitely our biggest threat to going out of business, but it is for them too. And so we let them know that, hey, you can take control back, right? You can, and it's by implementing controls that you get control back. That's how you gain advantage over the hackers, right? Is putting in controls. So when we implemented, ThreatLocker right off the bat, we were like, we're going to trust really nothing and then build that list to say what's trusted. And even though we use the baseline feature to figure out what's in their environment, we went in and unselected majority of the applications they had on their systems and said, we're gonna start really small and build up versus the other way around. And in the beginning, even some of the ring fencing features that Danny has were set to they were set a little open, I guess. They weren't automatically enforced. And we were like, no, we're turning all that stuff on right at the get-go. And then later, we just suggested to ThreatLocker, hey, you guys should probably just make that the default, and eventually, I believe you did, right, Danny?
Yeah, it's the default for all the default apps, and then just you have to add the optional apps.
Right.
So things like PowerShell and Redshift and Run DLL.
Yeah. So we just told our client, look, you really have two options here. You can become a victim, which a lot of people are, or you can take back control, and that means it's going to be a little bit extreme at first, but the pain is worth it, right? It's not hard to manage this by any means. It just means, and what we have found, if you go to the top of the organization, like to the CEO level, the high level people with your client, and you explain this to them, they are all in on it. If you don't, then you're going to get some resistance here and there,
So, and I think, and just the way that ThreatLocker works in most environments is you go through this process, and it's zero trust, but in some respects, what we're saying is no more trust. So, and you can take back trust. So the way most MSPs handle this is they'll deploy the agent out, they'll learn the environment, and they'll build their trust baseline from there. So they'll say, these are the applications we run. And for most businesses, they don't change their applications on a daily basis. It's pretty rare. And then we'll make sure nothing new is going to come in. And then they'll go back later on and start removing things they don't want. So they'll say, oh, why is TeamViewer on here? I'm going to remove that. Why is Dropbox on here? I'm going to remove this. Why is that coupon clipper? And there is no single audit that doesn't end with, what the hell is that doing on my machine? So even internally in the MSPs, I don't think I've ever seen an MSP not be shocked by at least one app in their list. But Brandis kind of did a bit more of that learning, but I think you did it in one weekend, was it, Brandis?
Ugh. We talk about diving in head first, blindfolded. We did it over a weekend with 1,500 endpoints. And we had also gone to our clients previously and said, this is important to us and it's mandatory. We did not give an option. We did give an option, but the option was because we're actually charging for it. So we charged every single one of those endpoints. And so everybody's service agreement went up. But we basically told them, it's important to us as a security. We're a security first company. That's our mindset. And we have to be. That's our responsibility as your MSP. That's our liability. I didn't use that word, but it's true. So your two choices are you do it and here's what you're paying, or you sign this waiver and that will allow us, 30 days of you being a dum-dum, and we'll help you transition to a new provider. And the waiver was really just in place to say, if you're refusing this, you can sign here, and then we are going to help you transition to someone else who maybe doesn't care about security as much. And we did have pushback from one client for just a second, and then we had a conversation with them, and that was fine. So we certainly forced it, and we probably would do things a little differently if I had to do it all over again, because it was a insanely long weekend that went into the week, because we had, all hands on deck, researching, and we created, all the guys have sandboxes on their computers to make sure that we are doing our due diligence on our end as the MSP, to make sure that what we are allowing and what we say is trusted, and, whatever we're allowing, the applications on their machines are in fact trusted. So it was a process.
So now that you guys are on board, there's always a concern around these zero trust approach. And in the enterprise world, I would have always said it was very easy to justify that, because what you ended up with was less tickets in your SOC because you were using zero trust. Because when you don't have zero trust, you have a SOC in the enterprise world in both cases, but what you have is somebody opens something that does something that triggers an event. Mm-hmm. With zero trust, it obviously doesn't trigger that event. Mm-hmm. And it now means less work on your SOC. But now if the user wants the software, they hit request and you approve that software. What's your experience been with that process of approving your software? And was it really, everyone's terrified of this, but is it really something you should be scared of?
No, we set up a board. We're using ConnectWise. We set up a board, a ThreatLocker board, and it goes straight to our board. And the guys, as I said, they all have sandboxes set up on their machines. And it's in the beginning, it is painful, just no different than in the beginning of anything, of any inconvenience. It's always painful until you're used to it. Once you get past that point, once you have, all the networks and the machines locked down to that, they're allowing what's supposed to be. And then every once in a while, you get tickets. We probably get a couple a day. And again, that's across 1,500 endpoints. It's maybe a handful. And it's not, once you get past that initial stage, you're good. Don't be, it seems like it would be overwhelming, but it's not.
I would add to that, we have the same number, 1,500 endpoints, and we do the same thing. Our approach was the same too. It's mandatory. And I would tell you, if you're considering this, make it mandatory, because your liability is at stake, right? So we made it mandatory, and we take the exact same approach. Brand new customers, if you're signing on, you're getting this, and mm-hmm. there's just no question. And we the same. We might get a handful of tickets a day, and I tell our guys on the help desk, I would personally sit here and do every one of those tickets every single day, rather than responding to a major breach or outbreak or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So Neil, there's another part. ThreatLocker is really focused around these kind of policy-driven controls and making sure things do less than they need to. You started off with the application control. You started off with the concept of zero trust at the application level, and you later came in and added the storage control. And maybe if you don't mind giving some feedback on what you like the most in the storage control, and what where you've used it and how you've used it in your environment.
Yeah, so we have, we're like in our 9th year in business. So we have some legacy clients that are used to doing things a very particular way, like they want to save all their stuff on their desktop, and, you're trying to teach them, no, do that, put it on the server, stuff like that. So we use storage control, believe it or not. And we said, look, change is coming and you need to stop doing that. And we're gonna allow you to save, shortcuts and stuff on your desktop, but you can't save Word and Excel documents on your desktop anymore. We did that with flash drives. We have healthcare, like Danny mentioned, and we told them, you need to only have certain approved flash drives, and you can even say only certain document types can be saved on those flash drives. So they, like Brandis mentioned earlier, someone, brings in a flash drive that has malware on it. Well, if you don't allow executables or any batch files or anything like that to run from flash drives, you just don't have the issue.
Good. Mm-hmm.
So and it's funny you mentioned that desktop policy, and we did that ourselves. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen us at the Bob and Robin trade shows, and the sales guys are always there, and it drives me insane when they save all this stuff on their desktop and they've got icons and customer quotes, and it's like, what is that doing on your desktop? And I said to them one day, they said, oh, it's in the CRM as well. I said, well, delete it now then. And then their face was like, no. And I was like, get it off your desktop now. And we did the same policy. We said, I don't want my staff saving things to their desktop. So we blocked everything, even shortcuts, because, well, they only run 3 apps and they don't need any more. So we just blocked everything being saved to the desktop. Very, very effective. What about you, Brandis? Have you guys made much use of the storage control at this point, or?
We have not, actually. I wouldn't be opposed to it, because at this point, our solution is, if they're being like that, and because, as Neil said, we also have, we've been in business since 2007. So we also have some old dog, new tricks kind of clients out there. And people are just creatures of habit. So no matter how many times you say, here's the drive on the server, this is where you need to save it, you're still going to go have just a massive amount of crap all over their desktop. And it's not just that. And then if something happens to their computer, now it's like, great, how do we get all that restored? So our solution up until this point has actually been, we make them do a desktop backup. So we make them pay for that too. So, I mean, nothing's free. So they just get to pay more because they don't want to save it in the right spot. But I'm definitely interested in this. And this is something that I definitely want to look at, because it would be nice to just say, yeah, too bad you don't get to do that anymore.
So I think you've definitely used this feature, Neil, because I remember a support ticket coming in. One of the challenges of the being an MSP and having clients is they don't know how to use a mouse. And quite often they drag entire folders into other folders by mistake, and files get deleted or files get missing. And one of the features of ThreatLocker is that we audit all file access. So we audit every document that's accessed on network shares, if it's copied to a USB drive, if it's all, like, I'm pretty sure I copied something earlier. It's all logged in one place, so you can see that as an MSP. Do you find yourself searching the audit very often?
We have people who open tickets and they're like, oh, my folder's gone, whatever, and they're all distraught. And we go straight in there and we find where they moved it to, and then we send it back and say, well, looks like you accidentally, moved it here, and we just put it right back for them. And it saves us a ton of time. Otherwise, you're searching all over the place trying to figure out what they did. And so it is great. And it's also helped us with, we had a client who had all these files that were changing, and so they're watching their file server and they're seeing the number of files changing, just going up really, really fast, and they're thinking it's some kind of malware. It turns out some guy's running a process during the day that he's supposed to do at night, and we found it right in here. So,
and Brandis, have you ever had or reason to use the audit at this point? Because I know it's sitting there, but it's
no, not yet.
And this is something. The nice thing about this feature, I feel, is it's for clients of MSPs. They don't care about that. I said they don't care about security. They want to push back against security, but this is a nice business function in that you can go in there and you can say, look how many people are copying things to the USB drive. The drives aren't encrypted. I can block those drives if you want. I can allow those drives. I can protect your backup storage so only certain things can access it. There's a lot of extra layers here from a management point of view, but also gives the client, oh, well, I get to see what my employees are doing, because everyone's a little bit scared their employees are dumping everything onto a flash drive. And being able to see that, if nothing else, is valuable.
Mhm.
I did check this out. Last week, I did our first in-person, seminar that we've done, in a long time. And I brought up storage control, and I was talking about it, and I was saying, one of the big threats to every business is what I call sneaker net. Somebody walks over the flash drive, sticks it in, and copies your client, list or some proprietary information, and then just walks away. And I said, with storage control, you can really limit those kind of things. And this lady who was there said that it happened to their company that day, like that same day, someone stole their client list. And I was like, wow, so it's a big deal. And for us, with the way we use this now, when we're going in a competitive situation during the sales process, we'll show a few of these features and just explain it. And so let's just say this, we're winning a lot of business because we can demonstrate that our security is superior. And so ThreatLocker isn't costing us anything. It's making us money because we're winning all these head-to-head scenarios. I don't know if that's how it is for you guys, Brandis, but it has been for us.
Yeah, it's very effective being able to, because we've also been presented with that question, what are you doing for this? And unfortunately, it took a little bit. I mean, you're down in Texas. I love Texas. But anything on the outside of the country gets it first. Y'all get it first. I said y'all, but we are in Kansas, and I feel like it took a little bit longer for the threat to be real to us. I feel like or at least our clients, not us, because it's coming about now. I know that there were a ton of dental practices that got ransomware about a year ago. And you see more and more of that on the news. It's no longer just the big guys that are out there that they're talking about as far as the local news now. So now that it's here, now that it's real, we have also had the same types of questions brought up in sales presentations and closing. What are you doing about this? What are you doing to fight this? How are you combating this? And so ThreatLocker is instrumental in that decision or in our conversations with our clients when we're closing.
So we have a couple of questions, and it's completely up to you if you want to share this. Somebody's asked, I know you did before talk about you managed to increase your MRR quite a lot when you added ThreatLocker, but somebody's asked, what did you add price per endpoint? And that's up to you if you want to share that, because on this.
$5. We charged $5 because we have some clients out there that are, antiquated. They're on even antiquated plans that we're raising our own prices on them. But $5 per endpoint, if you've got a client that has 50 endpoints, and we also for servers as well. I think you could probably get away with more. Like I said, we're in Kansas, we're dental focused. I'm not going to go into any sort of, stigma with dentists and spending, but, I'll just leave it at that. We charge $5 an endpoint.
When you send the email out saying we're adding $5 an endpoint, you only get one person complain. You probably could have asked for more.
Yeah, and that's true. But like I said, we're also in the process of raising our prices just in general. So
so got to keep that goodwill.
So yeah, and it also, we also said, hey, this is a pass-through cost. Is it a pass-through cost? Well, no. We're making a little bit of money on it, but we're not going to do it for free.
Yeah, well, that's it. Somebody's asked for an example of the waiver. We have a waiver. We have an MSP box drive, which has all sorts of marketing stuff in there. It has some rubber ducky hacking scripts in there, some sample code, and all sorts of other cool stuff as well. So I don't know if Brandis, I don't know if you got yours from us, did you? Or?
I sure did. I was going to say the waiver that I got came from Adam. Adam is Friedman, what's his last name?
Yeah, I'm Friedman. Yeah.
Yeah. So I emailed Adam. I'm like, dude, I don't have time for this. Just give me one. And he sent me one. I tweaked it just a bit, just really to, white label it to us. And that's exactly what I used. And it was perfect.
Yeah. And it's worth noting, we have a pretty large drive and marketing team that actually help our partners create collateral, create documentation, create use cases so they can relate it to their customers, because we know sometimes MSPs are limited on resources. So it's, feel free, if you are a ThreatLocker partner, to ask the sales team for some help with marketing. And then we have all those cool hacking tools as well. So if you want to get a rubber ducky, talking about rubber duckies, if you do sign up for a trial and you do lock down and deploy 100 endpoints by December 1st, so you're running out of time, lock down, you don't have to buy it, but no one doesn't buy one, so they've seen how scary their network is. But lock down 100 endpoints on the trial, and we will send you a free rubber ducky as well. So you can take that in and you can scare the crap out of your customers with so much fear. And we have a bunch of scripts in there. I know we're coming up on time. Do you guys, Brandis or Neil, do you have anything to add? Or
I mean, I would just say if anybody really is on the fence, reach out to some of the partners that are with ThreatLocker. I know we had kind of done the same thing, and they're going to be willing to talk to you. I know I would be willing to talk to you. I'm sure Neil would be. Just kind of letting you know. We can tell you what not to do. We can tell you how you should maybe deploy it in a great way if I were to be a little bit more efficient with that. But it's a lot scarier than it seems, and it is actually truly a zero trust product. They do what they say they're going to do, like legit. You got to be prepared for that, but it's 100% effective, and it sells itself. And we're super happy that we came on board.
Well, thank you, Brandis.
And I would add, Brandis said this earlier, that they have a very security first initiative, and that's us too. So if that fits you, if that's who you are as an MSP, then I would say you got to do this trial. You got to at least get in and try this out, because like Brandis said, there's some pain in the beginning, especially you were really brave to do that over one weekend. We did not do that. We kind of staged it in, client by client, but you just kind of ripped that Band-Aid off. But honestly, if it's not, it just becomes part of your everyday support. And really, this is really cool. We actually now, because we're responding, and like Brandis said, they go into a sandbox, they check to make sure what they're approving is legitimately should be approved. So now you're adding new value to your customer, because you're able to say, customer, we're not just allowing anything to run in your environment. We're going through a process to vet that out for you. And you're booking time on tickets. So you've kind of just created more value for you as an MSP to your customer. And so it's great, because you might think, oh, I hate to see my ticket count go up, but 5, however many it is per day we get, it's worth every bit of it.
Right.
So I would say do it. I would say I've got a rubber ducky sitting right here that I just got from Danny in the mail. It's in the package still. We're getting it ready to start doing demos ourselves with that. Danny said right at the beginning, the biggest threat to your organization as an MSP is the biggest way you're going to go out of business is a breach. It's getting yourself and then all your clients breached. I remember my first producers club was December 2019, and Kyle from Hunters gets up there and says like that an hour before he was on stage, he was with an MSP who had gotten breached, and all 4,000 of their endpoints were ransomed. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, kid, you're not going to survive that, right? That your company will not survive that. And so to me, there's no option. You got to take a security first approach and just jump in on this. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Okay. I've got 2 questions I'm going to try and push out before we get pushed off. Someone asked if they can use TL for the small home business clients. You don't need a domain. It doesn't need to be an Active Directory. I put this on my kids' computers. My daughter's search history had, how do I disable ThreatLocker? I said, good luck with that.
Yep.
Yeah. So yes, you can answer it. And one other question, maybe Neil and Brandis, if you can answer this, what other AV and EDR solutions do you use alongside ThreatLocker?
We are also using SentinelOne as well as Blackpoint Cyber, and we use WatchGuard firewalls. So I mean, it's kind of all together. That's our security suite.
We use SentinelOne as well. We do use Huntress just to look, especially when we onboard new customers. And we actually we're in the process. We're setting up our own SOC, our own SIEM. So we're doing Splunk, and we're kind of going a little harder on that area. But Blackpoint Cyber is a great option as well. We would definitely use that.
So I'm going to ask. I know Jeff might kick us off because we're at our hour.
You're good, Danny. Yeah, you're good if you want to answer the questions on there. I want to make sure you also show up the link on the screen as well. Again, before
so yeah, there's yes, we I think the word integrate, but we do coexist with Sophos a lot. We coexist with Webroot, we coexist with Windows Defender, we coexist with a lot of antiviruses. And what's really nice, whether you choose Windows Defender or SentinelOne or whatever, the nice thing about this is you're not overlapping multiple layers of detection. You're really talking about a different type of approach. Think of your antivirus as your house alarm. We are just the locks on the door. And rather than having 3 house alarms, you have 1 house alarm, 1 set of locks. The one other question I wanted to ask you guys was support-wise, because I'm never happy with our support yet. It's hard to argue that I don't have a single complaint on 1,500 tickets. What's your experience with the support, the live chat, the 24-hour support?
I wholeheartedly absolutely love the cyber heroes, because we're a managed service provider. We pride ourselves in support time and response time and answering our phone and getting a quick response to an email or any of those things. And is this being recorded? I don't know if I want to say it, but I mean, they're faster than us. We're pretty fast. They're faster than us.
Yeah, we have a less than 60 seconds average response time, 24 hours a day, and the guys can do Zoom sessions, and they're there. You click on that get help, and put it this way, if it goes over 60 seconds, it pings on my phone and I start getting mad.
I would support that you're under 60 seconds. Easy.
Our experience has been the same. I mean, extremely fast, and they solve your issue. They don't do like a lot of the other vendors who put you off or make you wait days on a ticket. I mean, they solve the issue. We came on in middle of 2019. I think that was maybe before they were in the Robin Robbins community. I'm not sure, but we had a lot of some good ideas, some probably not so good ideas, but ThreatLocker has taken those and implemented them. So that's huge for us that they've done that, and their support is fast, faster than us as well.
So Brandis, Neil, I really appreciate you joining us today. I put the demo link. It's calendly.com/ThreatLocker/demo. If you do want to book a demo, it's a 45-minute demo. I promise it won't be a waste of your time. If you do sign up for a trial and lock down 100 seats on that trial, you will get a free rubber ducky. Also, make sure you ask whoever you're working with to give you the box drive, because we have core marketing, collateral waivers, rubber ducky scripts, hacking tools, whatever you want to look at in there. So thank you again. And thank you, Jeff, for hosting this.
Absolutely, Danny. Hey, do you mind putting that, do you have that slide? You can throw it up on the screen, just because we'll have people watching the recording on this, and I want to make sure that is up there. I know you just said it here also, but you have a QR code up there.
Yeah, and I hope the QR code works. I'm going to see, because I didn't put it in there. So, or maybe I did, it was so long ago. It says it's going to Calendly anyway. There you go. Yeah, there's the right one. So
I don't think it's showing up here. You can make sure you share your screen.
Oh, is it not sharing? I thought it was sharing.
Not sharing.
There you go. I'll put it up again. That'll do it.
All right, there we go. Perfect. So there is the link there. I know Danny said it also. Just so everyone knows, I know this was asked of, that this will be posted up for everyone online, so you'll have a chance to be able to go back if you want to share it with your team, friends, or anyone else. It will be posted up on mspsuccessmagazine.com. And we'll also make sure that we send out a link to all of you so that you know exactly where it's at. And you can go there also, for there's a lot of great content from our previous webinars as well. So you always have that as a resource for information. Danny, Brandis, Neil, I appreciate you taking this time on a Friday afternoon. We didn't have anything too scary, I think. Maybe some good scary stories for Friday the 13th, but we got out of it unscathed. Definitely everyone out there, if you haven't done so already, book a demo with it. Everyone that I've talked with is super happy that they have here, and you hear about what the support is from the team. So make sure you do that. It's up on your screen. You can scan that for it, get it booked, and go check them out.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy your weekends.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye-bye.